I'm returning to this idea of creativity again, and I'm revisiting the video I made a few minutes ago about Wallas's model of creativity, which has played itself out in very different ways, which is a model of how individual psychological creativity works. And particularly I'm interested in this phase. Just to recap very quickly, he talks about 4 phases within the creative cycle, beginning with preparation, research, incubation, when you kind of move away and forget for a while, illumination, when the idea emerges fully formed onto the platform of your consciousness, and then verification, when you employ rational critical methods to evaluate the results and do whatever kind of clear up work you need to do on that. He talks about that. What I'm interested in, one of the things I'm interested in, is that moment between incubation and illumination, or what's happening there. Incubation is usually, certainly in Wallas and in other writers since Wallas, is characterized by a very distinct, clear moment of moving away. You literally do the research and then you walk away from it, and then wait for something to happen. You're taking a shower, or you're shaving, or you're driving your car, and suddenly, or you're taking a walk, and the idea suddenly emerges. I mean, that's, if you like, the kind of archetypal vision of that moment. But as I was saying in my last video, I don't think that archetype is necessarily the most common experience of that. I think those phases between putting an idea to bed in your subconscious and then waiting for it to wake up into your consciousness several hours later is not the norm. I think it's more likely that those things are happening pretty much constantly on a micro level. It's constantly ideas are being kind of going underground and then emerging later in a transformed state. So if I was to make speculations about what's happening in that interim point, about what's happening during the incubation phase prior to the illumination phase, it would have to be some kind of neurological account, or at the very least some kind of psychological account. Because after all, you are thinking about something for a while consciously. You are consciously going out and carrying out some kind of research, and then you're consciously not doing that. You're thinking about something else. And the fact that the results of a problem you've prepared for can emerge fully formed can only be explained really through an explanation that draws on psychology or neuroscience. So if I was going to talk about that, clearly what I wouldn't feel comfortable about doing is using language like inspiration or the descent of a muse. I don't really think that what happens in that point, and I don't think anybody thinks this anymore, I don't think what happens at that point is you do the research, you go away, you take a shower, and whilst you're in a shower, an angel comes down and gives you the idea. That doesn't seem to make a great deal of sense. So it can only be neurological or psychological. And being that, I would favour myself something like Edelman's accounts of Neural Darwinism. What he talks about there is the way that learning, but not just learning, certain cognitive processes function at a neuronal level, at the level of actual connections being made by the kind of swings and roundabouts of Darwinian evolutionary processes, adaptive processes. So the most successful connections, the most successful patterns of neuronal firing become established and become more and more established. And presumably at a certain point that establishment becomes available to consciousness as a solution. Of course, quite how that works on the level of detail, I have absolutely no idea. And I think it would also be something like mimetic theories that obviously Dawkins was instrumental in developing, but people like Susan Blackmore have developed since, and Daniel Dennett developed since. Again, there's this kind of underworld of ideas, prepared for ideas. You've got the building blocks of the ideas in there, and you've got some kind of mechanism for shuffling them around non-consciously at the level of actual physical instantiation within neurons. and then you just kind of wait for the tide of thinking to sweep across these landmarks and present themselves fully formed to consciousness. So I think that even though, as I say, Wallas is kind of breaking it. It looks like a flow chart when you see Wallas's on paper, when you see Wallas's drawings on paper, or see his model on paper. It looks very instrumental. I think that's at a cognitive level, at a neurological level. It probably plays itself out as an ecology. We're probably looking at the evolution of ideas within non-conscious cognitive processes, and within non-conscious neurological structures of the brain even. And it's those things which are not only coming to consciousness, but are constituting consciousness. I don't think I've been particularly clear on that at all, actually. Never mind.